Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Kamika's Heavenly Journey. I am so excited to bring you this message today. So, today we'll be talking about something good. It's something that we often think that it's okay to to feel fearful. Sometimes we think it's natural, but I just want to give a biblical perspective. How about how we should approach our journey through life and the things that God has given us to do. Because indeed, God has given us a spirit that's bold and strong, and it's all over His word where He says, "Do not be afraid." And so I just want to share with you. So the story I'll be sharing with you is Deuteronomy 31. And it's about when God chose Joshua to lead the Israelites into the promised land. And it really didn't begin in the chapter of Joshua, it began from the time of Moses. Because remember, Moses was the one who led the Israelites out of Egypt. But it was coming to the time when Moses was about to die, so he in essence handed over the baton to Joshua based on how God designed it to be. So in Deuteronomy 31, it says, "Then Moses went out and spoke these words to all Israel. I am now 120 years old, and I am no longer able to lead you. The Lord has said to me, 'You shall not cross the Jordan.' The Lord your God Himself will cross over ahead of you. He will destroy these nations before you, and you will take possession of the land. Joshua also will cross over ahead of you, as the Lord said." So, this is in Deuteronomy. So Joshua is telling the Israelites what's going to happen. So let us move on now to Joshua. And I love this story of Joshua from the very first chapter. And I'm going to read to you from chapter 1, verse 1, where it says, "After the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord said to Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' aide, 'Moses, my servant, is dead. Now then, you,'" that's Joshua, "'and all these people get ready to cross the Jordan River into the land I am about to give to them, to the Israelites. I will give you every place you set your foot, as I promised Moses. Your territory will extend from the desert to Lebanon, and from the great river Euphrates, all the Hittite country, to the great sea on the west." So you know that this is huge, like vast, pieces of land that God is telling Joshua about. Continuing in verse 5, "No one will be able to stand up against you all the days of your life." Isn't that a wonderful promise? "As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you." Now, this is when, can you imagine Joshua listen to this? God commanded him. I mean, he God spoke to him so clearly and says, "This is what I'm going to do." But I want to recognize something. As it goes into verse 6, in the very next verse, he gives him the first command. And you know what that command is? In verse 6 it says, "Be strong and courageous, because you will lead these people to inherit the land I swore to their forefathers to give them. Be strong and courageous. And I believe that these words are not only for Joshua, but it's for us, God's people, his followers. You know, he has given us great tasks to do. He has given us dreams and aspirations, and he's given us, you know, just great things that he has put in our hearts. And he wants us to be strong and courageous. The Christian faith is not a faith where we, you know, well, maybe some people may think that, you know, we are very timid and, you know, soft, but no, we as people of God are bold, are strong and courageous. So moving on to verse 7, again he repeats the same thing. God says to Joshua, be strong and very courageous. So he adds the very. So it's like he wants to drive that point in to Joshua, right? He explained to him what he's going to do, right? And he's commanding him, be strong and courageous. Again, it is repeated in verse 9, the same thing. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Now, this is all in the first 9 verses of the first chapter of Joshua. Now, how many times has he commanded him to be strong and courageous? So, when God's chosen people have been given a big task to do, or any task, you know, it may not be the same task as Joshua. Whatever it is, he's saying, be strong and courageous. Because I'm in a season now where it's looking for, you know, verses that, you know, just give me the confidence in knowing the power that God has given me, and to just be bold in it, and to be confident in it, and to be courageous and walking in that boldness. And so, you know, oftentimes when we fear, it's because, you know, we fear the unknown. We fear what we might be going into. We don't know what is to come. So what if I do this? Oh, I may fail. Or, you know, people might laugh. What if I do something, what, you know, it may be a waste of my time. Instead of making a step forward, take a step back, or just stay where we are and not move on into God's purpose for us. So I want to speak to someone now, whether you are going through a situation now or in the future, where you are faced with a task, and instead of, you know, telling yourself that I don't think I should do this, you know, I shouldn't do this, or, you know, telling yourself that what you think might happen in the future wouldn't make sense. You know, how can I even go, why should I do this? I don't think I'm going to do it properly. I don't think I'm going to do it well. Whatever the situation will be, is I want someone to hear this, because we need to know that God is a God who is powerful, and he goes beyond our own self, right? Oftentimes we're thinking in ourselves how we are able to do it in our own self, our own flesh, but no, God goes beyond our flesh. He is God. He is God. So we're not doing it in our own strength. We're doing it in the strength of Almighty, all powerful, all knowing God. So let me take you another step in the Word to chapter 3, where Joshua has said to the Israelites, okay, Josh, come here and listen to the words of the Lord your God. This is how you will know that the living God is among you, and that he will certainly drive before you the Canaanites, Hittites, Hivites, Perizzites, Girgashites, Amorites, and the Jebusites. See, the ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth will go into the Jordan ahead of you. Now then, choose 12 men from the tribes of Israel, one from each tribe. And as soon as the priests who carry the ark of the Lord of all the earth, set foot in the Jordan, its waters flowing downstream will be cut off and stand up in a heap. To verse 15, it says, now the Jordan is at flood stage all during harvest. And I want you to get an idea of the Jordan River. It's a mile wide. That is a big river. Now, can you imagine the Israelites have reached to that river? It's a mile wide, so as far as their eyes can see, it is river. And it is at flood stage. So you can see that everything else is looking it through their eyes as something that might be just impossible, or they're just impossible to cross, a task that would be just too much for them to handle. So in verse 15, now the Jordan is at flood stage all during harvest. Yet as soon as the priests who carried the ark reached the Jordan, and their feet touched the water's edge, the water from upstream stopped flowing. It piled up in a heap a great distance away. There are two things. One, as soon as they made the first step, so that as their feet touched the water's edge, what happened? The waters stopped flowing. And it stopped flowing where? Upstream the river. So it was ahead of where they even made the step. Would they have known that this would happen? Sometimes when we are faced with a big task, we just need to make the first step. And where does God work? Ahead of us. So when we're thinking that if we do something, what's going to happen in the future, that is exactly where God works. When we take that first step, He works ahead. He has already gone ahead of us. And I just want to confirm, here is another verse in Isaiah 45, verses 1 to 2. It says, this is what the Lord says to His anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I take hold of, to subdue nations before Him, and to strip kings of their armor, to open doors before Him, so that gates will not be shut. I will go before you, and will level the mountains. I will break down gates of bronze, and cut through bars of iron. Again, I will go before you. We don't have to fear the future. We don't have to fear what is to come, what will happen, because God goes before us. Isn't that wonderful? God is just so good. I have just no words for how He is so good. He has shown us in so many ways, and in the story of Joshua, what He did for the Israelites. And when they made that first step, and when Joshua spoke to the Israelites from God Himself, the Israelites were bold and courageous. They made that first step. God removed what was seemingly an impossible task, and the Israelites crossed over on dry ground. Can you imagine that? They saw a flooded river as far as their eyes could see, and they crossed over on dry ground. People of God, do not fear. Take Joshua's command as your own and be bold and courageous in whatever season you're in. So thank you for watching again, and I'll see you in the next one.